Hey guys, how's it going? It's Chris here, and I just want to say if you're listening to this on Spotify or if you're watching this video on YouTube, just to let you know, it's on the other platform that you're not on. I have this available as audio only. Hello, Snapchat. I have this available as audio only over on my Spotify feed, which is under the Nihility podcast feed. That's where I upload all my solo casts, all of my podcasts with guests and friends and stuff like that, and then where I am currently migrating other older reviews that I have done, and this is the first review I've done in quite a long while, and I did discuss this on a solo cast, saying I wanted to take individual podcast episodes where I wanted to talk about these specific shows and things that I like. I'm going to make a whole episode about them, and I am doing that here, but I'm doing it in the style of my old anime reviews. So if you have seen those over on my YouTube at Linkin's Legion or whatever have you, then that's what we're doing here today. So, and again, just going to do some admin real quick before we get into this. I did want to say I am recording all of my books as audiobooks with me reading it, me doing everything. I'm recording and editing one chapter at a time, starting with book 1, working my way through. That is the longest, so it's going to take me a little while. I'm currently 5 chapters in, so I'm doing that right now. I'm going to be doing it for every single book. That's book 1, Transgression, maybe the Origins. I don't quite know because those aren't up to my par of writing. I'm going to be doing Devil to the Damned, book 2, and every book that I think is important enough to do an audio before I will be doing. Those will be going up on the Vengeance Books official Spotify feed and the Vengeance Books official YouTube channel. All the links to everything I mentioned will be down below in the description. Just scroll through, you'll find what you need, and follow me wherever you need to. On that note, today we're talking about Camp Cretaceous, the Netflix series in the Jurassic World franchise. Now, Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous follows a group of 6 teenagers chosen for a once-in-a-lifetime experience at a new adventure camp on the opposite side of Isla Nublar. But when dinosaurs wreak havoc across the island, the campers are stranded. That is the synopsis. And the first season of the series is set during the time frame of the events of 2015's Jurassic World, and the third season is set during the time frame of events happening in the opening scenes of 2018's Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. This show has 5 seasons total. So for context, again, if you have seen Jurassic Park 1, 2, 3 and Jurassic World 1, 2, and 3, this is canon to those. So some things get a little bit muddled, a little bit confusing at times, but yeah, the first season is set during the when the Indominus Rex escapes, is when the campers get stranded, because they're there for like a whole day camp thing where it's a sleepaway camp, they're all doing their shit, whatever have you, and then the Indominus escapes, the island is evacuated, and they are left on the island. That's the premise of the show. That all takes place within the first 5, I think it's episode 4 where those things kick off. So, and then when we do get into season 3, and by the way, no spoilers, we're not going to be talking about spoilers, outside of anything that you would probably see on the first episode. I will touch on certain things, but I will not be spoiling plot. But likely you're watching this because you've already seen it, but still, in case you're trying to find out, do I want to watch this? And this is my recommendation for it. I did want to say I'm not a huge fan of the Jurassic World movies. Any Jurassic movie that came out after Jurassic Park 1, 2, 3, and Jurassic World. I did kind of enjoy the first Jurassic World. I'm not going to lie. It's not great. It has a lot of issues, and I don't particularly enjoy the cast very much. But the second Jurassic World and then the third Jurassic World, I could not care less. I saw each one of them once, and I kind of wish I never saw them. The only thing that held them up for me is dinosaurs go rawr, wee, fun. That's about it. If I had to rank all the movies, not including the TV series in the mix, the order would go something like Jurassic Park 1, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 2, Jurassic Park 3, and then the other trash after that, okay? But that list is subject to adjustment, besides Jurassic Park 1 always being top of the hill, number 1 king. I didn't know what to expect when I first loaded up the first episode of Camp Cretaceous on Netflix this past year, but I was pretty certain that I was not going to fall in love with it. I just kind of figured it was going to be a nothing show, whatever. I didn't even think I was going to finish the 5 seasons. I didn't realize it was 5 seasons until I got a few episodes in. I'm like, how long is this show? 5 seasons, holy shit. It's 100 episodes, or it's 60 or 80 episodes or something like that. And the episodes are quick. I think they're 30 minutes long each. I believe so. Maybe they're 40 minutes. They might be 40 minutes each. I don't quite remember. But boy, like I said, I was wrong. I fell in love with the show. So here we go. The show starts off with our main character, Darius, playing a VR dinosaur game. And we're pretty quickly exposed to the traits of our current MC as he's presented to us. Our main character is presented to be Darius. Though that will shift throughout the show, we do kind of have a loose narrative where we kind of break away from Darius's perspective, and we spend time with other characters as our current focus. And even at points we get a dramatic irony where we follow the villains for a short time and we see what's going on with them. So when we rejoin our cast, we have an idea of kind of like what's cooking in the background. But for all intents and purposes, Darius is our main character. We get to see immediately through the VR game and the wide shot of his bedroom how knowledgeable and passionate he is about dinosaurs right out of the gate. Like, he is fully invested in dinosaurs and the concept of Jurassic World, and he is trying to get to Jurassic World as soon as possible. That's his main goal, is to go see dinosaurs for real for the first time ever. The whole reason why he's playing the game in the first place is because whoever beats the game gets a free trip to Camp Cretaceous, to the park. However, like I said, he does lose the game. His character is killed by the T-Rex, and he kind of takes a headset off in despair, and he's kind of sulking when his older brother Brendan comes in, and he expresses his concern with Darius's obsession with dinosaurs and how just adamant he is about the game and about everything. First, giving you a hint, basically by Brendan's expression, his exasperation with the whole thing, that there is some deeper theme to the dinosaurs and their relation with Darius and his family and stuff like that. You can kind of tell something going on. And in the first few episodes, we do explore this. And it's something that I'm going to talk about later. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but I will talk about it. I'll brush up against it. Eventually, he does wake up. Darius goes to bed that night. He wakes up later with an epiphany, and he loads into the game. And he kind of restarts the checkpoint just before the T-Rex kills him. He kind of jumps over into a pile of bones, and he finds a Velociraptor that the fucking Jurassic the Velociraptor trumpet. He finds that and he blows it. He calls the Velociraptors. They come over. They attack the T-Rex, giving him a chance to escape. He gets on the helicopter and he wins. So he beats a VR game and he wins a trip to the sleepaway camp, Camp Cretaceous. So that's where it kicks off, right? The plot then follows his introduction to the other characters we're going to be spending time with, and I personally was off-put by almost every single one of them, and I believe that is to be intentional. They're supposed to be a group of kids. You're like, wow, I'm not going to enjoy any of these people. We see Brooklyn, who is a social media influencer with a pastel pink aesthetic and has a snooty attitude to everyone around her. She's nose deep in her phone the whole time. She's posting to her YouTube channel or whatever that her little society of people called Brooklanders, and she's always going on and on about that and bragging about the stuff she's done with and for the channel, yada yada. So she's already insufferable. You have Kenji, who is an arrogant, prideful, kind of goofy dude who's kind of a show-off, trying to act like he's the coolest guy ever, but he's also the scaredy cat of the group. But he's yeah, I got all the hookups. I'm the in and out. I know how to do all the stuff around the park. His dad is a big player in the Jurassic World business kind of thing. So he is a daddy buys me everything rich dude. Is yeah, I have all the connections. They let me do whatever I want around the park. He's that guy. Then you have Ben, who's a nervous clean freak with literal zero life experience. The dude's walking around with a fanny pack and drowning himself in hand sanitizer, and he has the nasally, whiny voice talking about how his mom wants him to do this, that, or the other thing. You have Sammy, who's a farm girl who's just overly friendly, clingy. She's the hugger of the group. She's the one with the southern accent, talks about her cows back home and blah, blah, blah. Then you have Yasmina, who's the athletic loner with a prickly disposition, who's artful, quiet to herself, kind of not a dark aesthetic. She's not the goth character or anything, but she's definitely the broody one of the group who just wants to be quiet, have everyone leave her alone and mind her own business. I don't even know why Yaz is there. All the characters do have a reason for being on the park, which we learn very slowly. And at the beginning, I thought Yasmina, or Yaz, was going to be my favorite character because I related to her. Obviously, she's quiet, she's artistic, she's brooding, she wants everyone to leave her alone, whatever have you. But surprisingly, she wasn't my favorite character. We will get to that later. The campers are then herded together, no pun intended, by two counselors named Dave and Roxy. Dave is full of energy camp counselor, trying to be everybody's friend, making jokes, making dumb puns, being the overly bombastic, whatever kind of goofy dude. Roxy is a triple F massive titty girl for no fucking reason. This girl has gigantic boobs. I don't know why they made her model like this. It's crazy, but she's the calm, collected, I'm in charge here, but also I'm your friend, you can talk to me, cool teacher kind of girl. They're both pretty chill, though they're not really part of the main cast, as the kids will get stranded without any adult figures, so these are kind of ancillary to the plot right now. They are enjoyable, even though we don't see a whole lot of them once everything kicks off, and they're trying to keep all the wily kids under control. Now that the scene is set and you have an idea where we are, let's get into the scoring system. If you don't know, I like to score these based on a 10-point system of 10 categories. That way, by the end, we add up all the scores for a blank ranking out of 100 points. Or to simplify it, you take the number and then divide by 10, it's a blank out of 10. So remember, in a category, if something scores a 5 out of 10, a 5 is average. I want to emphasize and stress that a 5 is average. That is a middle point. It is as good as it is bad. So starting off with number 1, the plot and the story. The general plot over the 5 seasons is pretty easy to understand in the beginning. Like seasons 1, 2, and 3 are pretty straightforward, pretty understandable. But as seasons 3, midway through 3, 4, and 5 do come around, the complexity of the seasons rises and changes, obviously to keep the interest going and to tie into the Jurassic World franchise. I do love a good survival against the odds story / being stranded story, or like a misfits working together kind of thing. That's what the show is. It presents itself as that. The show has a great system in place of antagonists, meaning while there's always the looming threat of dinosaurs all around them on the island, they also have their own turmoil and their relationships. Obviously, basically each season has their own main antagonist. Like season 1 starts out, the Indominus is the driving antagonist, the driving force, because it causes the shutdown of the park, and it is the reason why they get stranded. So that's they're running for the Indominus at times, whatever. But then also, I do want to say, remember, these kids, they've known each other at this point, like when the plot kicks off, for 2 days. They meet. They sleep for a day or 2, and then everything goes wrong. So they barely know each other, and they've already established people that they like, that they don't like. They have friction. They have whatever. They barely know each other. So when things go wrong, kind of stuck with a very dysfunctional group. So watching them struggle with communication, leadership skills, and just general childish sniping, it's interesting. Personally, and without spoilers, like I said, I lost a bit of interest around the 4th and the 5th seasons of the main plot, the driving force, because of some of the stuff that was happening was out of my realm of expectation of what I thought the show was going to be, and also kind of threw me off with technological reasonability. I know that the Jurassic franchise by modern day is a little bit more advanced technology. We got the holograms, we got these cool data pads and all this crazy shit. They brought dinosaurs back, so the technology is a little bit out there. And while it is the show is really grounded, some of the stuff that happens in the later seasons, and again, I'm not going to get into it, is just kind of I could do without this, but I see what they're doing, so it's not losing points. But I was spending more time on Pokemon Go when I was watching it, and some character developmental points did start to repeat a little bit, but overall, by that point they had meshed. And you're yeah, I kind of know what Darius is going to say. I know how we're going to approach this. We just got to get there. So it had for me personally. However, what was happening in all that and what it was building towards was still incredibly enjoyable because the characters themselves made it worth every minute. Not to mention the implication these things have for the movie franchise. Again, like I said, these are canon to the films. So because of all that, in my opinion, there wasn't a wasted episode, though there were certainly some small not really wasted plot points, but things I could do without. But either way, everything kind of worked towards the point of the show. You think of it like an arrow, everything is on that incline towards the point. Everything is working towards it. So the group held everything together with me with their dynamic, their drama, their immaturity, and their obviously predictable growth. Now, again, keep in mind, these kids are, aged from between 12 to 16, so, watching them deal with all this stuff is, deep in and of itself, and watching them bicker and have issues is, yeah, that's realistic, I expect that. I give the overall plot and story an 8 out of 10, starting off strong. Now, number 2, the characters. I know I've already spoken of this a lot already. I've given you guys a good foundation, and I will say that these categories do have overlapping points, but I'm taking each category individually to dive deeper into that specificity. All the characters are introduced to us with many of their own annoyances. We're kind of set to have expectations of these characters. Ben, he never stops complaining. He's always whining. Darius is a humble know-it-all, but in an excited way. He just wants to share how much he knows about the dinosaurs. He's so excited to be able to talk about it and to see all the stuff unraveling around him. And he's just a kid who's happy with a passion, but all the other guys are shut up, dino nerd, you're annoying. Brooklyn, like I said, she's a fucking YouTuber. She just never stops filming herself going, "What's good, Brooklanders?" And it's just oh my god, what are you doing? You're the exact person I don't want to be around. And it goes on. Kenji is arrogant and like always acts like the cool guy. Yasmina just minds her own business, and Sammy is overly excited. And it's just these things you're like, God, fucking kids, man. But after the first season, when these kids have time to get to know each other and literally survive an onslaught of trauma and near deaths, those harsh edges we kind of like were introduced to are shaved down quite a bit, and those annoyances kind of become endearing traits. I hate to say it because, like I said, Brooklyn was like the last person I'd ever want to subject myself to in real life. Just an obnoxious, I'm filming myself the center of attention and I got the scoop and I'm doing this and blah, 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 whatever. And it's just that persona, don't want to be around that, even though like I have my own YouTube persona, but it's not a public thing. So, but she surprisingly turned into my favorite character by the end. Brooklyn turned into my favorite character, except for Bumpy, of course. And you just, with her especially, and with all the characters, but you got to see underneath the surface of how they presented themselves. And as kids, they define themselves by these specific character traits, by the things that they know, by the things that they love, and how they want to be seen. And you get to see underneath that, you get to see how Brooklyn herself was. She was smart, she was clever, and underneath it all, warm-hearted and kind and caring, and just not at all what you expected. And that's how everyone kind of develops. You got to see the gooey bits under the harsh crust. You know what I mean? They all grew exponentially as the show went on, and by the end, you feel like you're friends with them. You believe their friendships. Yeah, of course, struggle, trauma, and survival bonds people together like that, but you believe it, These kids are surviving against dinosaurs and against the elements, It made me particularly yearn for that special friend group of people, of misfits and delinquents that would, have each other's backs as kids. That movie trope, that TV show trope, the odd ones out, the circumstantial friendships, that weird inseparable bundle of people who should by no means get along, but they do, and they make it work, and it's incredible to see. I never had that, and this show made my heart ache for it, but I got to live it through them. So for that alone, for the characters, I give a 9 out of 10. The characters are nearly perfect. The only thing that loses points is some repetitive actions and some stuff that happens later in the season of like certain like betrayal stuff. I'm just like, come on, no, not this. You know better than that. Whatever, stuff like that. So, but even still, that only loses 1 point for me. Number 3 is art and animation. Now, this is different than my usual anime reviews because with the anime reviews, I'm judging those based on how clean the art style is, how dynamic the art style is, the fight scenes, the action scenes, when the budget is really getting to show its depth and whatever have you. And this show is obviously not like that. This show is entirely CG rendered. There are character models, and they have built environments, and usually, for me, that's a bit of a turnoff because I kind of feel like I look at it as almost lazy, even though it obviously isn't. But like, I see anime and hand-drawn stuff and go, yeah, that's the effort, that's the life, that's the individuality. And then the CG is just kind of like, whatever, take it or leave it. And the show doesn't look incredible by any means. I mean, I don't know when it was released. It was released a few years ago, so it's a tiny bit dated, but it's not bad by any means. Like I said, by the time season 5 came around, that was Fallen Kingdom, so it is still pretty recent. But still, given that, the character models are solid. The animation, the motion of them running, their walk cycles, their general interaction with the world and each other, their facial expressions, how the skylines look and stuff, it's detailed, it's realistic, and they move realistically. They move like people do and like kids would. The way when they frantically run from something, when they interact with the dinosaur, when the fear on their face, the emotions, and whatever have you. I'll get into that stuff later, but like, it's good. The detail was put in there, the work was put in, and everything is just varied enough. But it does all kind of meld together because it's CG. Sometimes it can look kind of flat, even though it's 3D. But, it's what you'd expect to see. It's not so realistic, but it's whatever. It's animation. It's a cartoon, It's a solid 7 out of 10. It's a little bit above average. It could be a 6, but I'm going to give it a 7 just because of, again, like the way that they work with character expressions. And I'll be getting into that more here in category number 4, which is character design. Now, the characters themselves are all unique enough that you can tell them apart based on a color palette, based on their outfit, based on a silhouette, even based on just like how they move. They're all unique in their own way. They all have their own like idle animations, if you want to think about it like that. The way they hold themselves, it's all unique. They don't feel like they're copy pasted. I do want to make sure I give the show extra points that it deserves for those details that I've noticed that I've already stated that have carried over in art and animation, but also for additional things in just the character design. Things like, as the show goes on, like Kenji is, I believe, the oldest. He's like 15 or 16. And as the show progresses, when they're stranded on the island and they're away from, modern comforts and utilities, you see that Kenji starts to grow some facial hair. He gets kind of stubbly. He gets like patchy facial hair that grows in, and you don't notice it right away. And there are points in the show where we have like small time jumps and stuff, but like you notice even just between like a 5-episode span of like he's growing facial hair, and he obviously can't shave it or keep it clean. And you don't notice it immediately until you see it first, and you go, "Oh wow!" And then you rewatch some episodes, you see, yeah, he has been growing facial hair. That's something that they've done. And then, like in the later scenes, as I think there's like a point where 6 months pass or something like that, like they survive for 6 months, and you see that Brooklyn, who has pastel pink hair down to her scalp, you see her hair growing out. You notice that like over episodes in time, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 1 inch, 3 inches, that her brown hair is growing in. And you're like, oh, they did that on purpose. They noticed that, and they did it. They didn't do it just like a stark, oh, all of a sudden she has some brown strands or whatever. No, they slowly grew her hair out, and their hair is longer and more unkempt and whatever have you. And stuff like their clothes being ripped or getting dirty, and they rip in a real way. Like as characters running, like Brooklyn has skinny jeans on, so like it rips around her thighs because of all like the running, the falling, the stretching of the fabric. Her thighs get like rips and cuts in it, and like her jacket gets scuffed, or like Kenji gets like scrapes and dirts or whatever. Like, and the characters have rips on the shirts that stay consistent throughout the show. They get a rip, and that rip will stay because it's a new character model and it's consistent. It's stuff like that which I personally really appreciate it, because when I notice it, it's like, the subtle details. Like as a writer and as somebody who loves film and loves stuff like that, it's those subtleties that are so realistic and consistent, and they really immerse me. It's like, yes, somebody thought to do this. You really do see the art, and you get to see that the characters, what they're enduring in surviving, is reflecting in their appearance. And for that, I give it an 8 out of 10. I almost want to give it a 9, but I'm going to keep it solid at an 8 out of 10. Number 5, voice acting. Now, what can I say? If it weren't for voice actors, none of the characters would feel as alive as they do, and none of them would feel as personable, relatable, and realistic as they do. Forgive me for the pronunciations, but I'm going to list off some of the voice actors in case you recognize some of them. Darius is voiced by Paul Michael Williams. Brooklyn is voiced by Jenna Ortega, which that caught me off guard. Sean Giambrone, it's Giambrone. I don't know how to pronounce it. Voices Ben. Kausar Mohammed voices Yasmina. However, voices Yasmina. Sammy is played by Rainy Rodriguez, and Kenji is voiced by Ryan Potter. Now, again, I only recognize Jenna Ortega, which caught me off guard when I realized that that's who was voicing her. Like, I do kind of recognize her, but I don't know Jenna Ortega. I know her from, like, Wednesday and just seeing her on TikTok and stuff, but I don't know anything else really about her. I've never even seen Wednesday, but, like, her name became household because of that. Now, the thing I want to say is that, like, this show has its fair share of, like, screams of terror, heartfelt emotion, full-on sobbing, tender, quiet moments, personable, standard, casual banter, like things that are very human and that we all experience and hear and do. And all the voice cast just absolutely fucking killed it. Like, when a character was crying, I was crying because it was portrayed in such a good way. It was portrayed so professionally and so well done that it was just like, it's encapsulating. When the characters are yelling because they're afraid, when the characters are screaming desperately for their companion to look for them in the forest and make sure that they're alive, that they're okay, like, you feel it because the voice actors are giving it their all. They do such a good job. And they all have their own personal inflections that stay consistent and real. It feels real. I'm just going to keep it pretty straightforward and give voice acting a 9 out of 10. Number 6, the soundtrack. Now, the show doesn't have a particular theme song, like how I would normally rate these with anime. I normally go through the anime opening, the background music, the closer, whatever have you. The show doesn't have a particular opening AMV style or anything like that, but it is a sequence. It's a short sequence that's like 20, 30 seconds long, something like that, and it is enthralling. Every episode starts the same throughout the whole 5 seasons. That's the same exact intro, and it never gets old. It starts with a low, somber building horns in the background as like the Universal logo comes into view. We get some studio logos. We kind of get like the forest view as like the horns are building. There's a slow stomping in the background of what you know to be a T-Rex. And then you have that horn escalates as the door to the Jurassic World gate comes, or the Jurassic Park, whichever one, the gate comes into view, and you hear chittering, anxiety-riddled, growing, expanding strings, just an orchestral build, and then it comes to a cacophony, and then the music just kind of like, boom, the gate smashes open, a T-Rex lets out a pitched roar that shakes and then cuts to black, and it's so simple, and it's so effective, and it works every single time. The music in the show is what you'd expect. Nothing really, for me, stood out. I don't really recall any particular moments, but I will say that whatever music was in the scene always matched the tone, and it always did its job to make me feel what the characters felt. If it was emotional, the music was emotional. If it was anxiety, the music was ramped up. If it, whatever, everything, the music just worked. It always fit the theme, it blended in, and everything worked cohesively together. And the soundtrack for me, I think I'm going to give it just a 7 out of 10. It's above average, but it's not great. It's not memorable for me, personally. You could have a completely different view. I can't remember a single soundtrack, but all I know is that it did work and it did its job. Now, number 7, we have emotional impact. Now, as you can already tell, I've already gotten into it, that there's a lot of things about this show that work towards that emotional level. Now, let me tell you, I definitely got emotional during the show for a myriad of reasons. Like, I mean, episode 3 or 4, you get hit with a gut punch I'm not even gonna go into, but it's like a reason why the character is at the park, and then like the tragedy behind them even being at the park at all. Oh, fucking heart-wrenching, dude. It's so sad. As the show goes and as these relationships build and the characters, learn to care for each other and even have their betrayals and their moments and their forgivenesses, like, you're so emotionally invested. At least I was. I felt totally, like I said, I felt like part of the group. Whether it's like the aforementioned themes of friendship between the unlikely group, or near-death experiences and reunions between characters. Hell, whether it's watching a dinosaur moan out for its family, or be the dinosaur Bumpy, because Bumpy is a little ankylosaurus, being happy and letting out like a little noise because it's happy to see the group, because Bumpy's a character. Stuff like that. Like, I've never cried at a fucking dinosaur, dude. It's so sad. These characters, they all come to us with baggage and purpose and the reasons for being on the island and why they push on. It really pulls at you too at times. Watching them overcome their personal strifes and their own issues that they recognize and are trying to overcome, and admitting when they're wrong and admitting when they're right, or even just standing strong against the odds that they face. Fuck, I die for all that shit, Hell, like I said, I've never loved a dinosaur as much as I loved Bumpy, and I never thought I'd do a complete 180 on some of these characters' first impressions. I don't dislike any of them by the end, and some of them did some pretty bad stuff that I don't agree with, but they have their reasons, and they have valid reasons for doing stuff, and you just love it, man. It's emotional. It's definitely emotional. Hell, I watched the last episode 2 days in a row because I wanted to cry again. Like, I give it an 8 out of 10. Solid 8. 8 out of 10 for emotional impact. For number 8, we have distractions. Now, usually this category is reserved for, and I'm just going to say it, anime titties and sex service. And fan service. Things like beach episodes, pointless fan service that does nothing for the characters or the plot. Things that are just totally distracting us for what we should be focusing on. Things like, oh, we're in a fight and the character's wearing a skirt, and we obviously get to have the skirt billow up when we see their panties, we see their ass cheeks, we see their cleavage bouncing, which is something that's like, that's fine, it's whatever, but like, it's distracting. Like, that's not the point. Why are we focusing on this? Stop trying to get me to like this more because of sex. Because of sexual themes. Like, it's dumb. I will say the show does have like a couple episodes where all the characters are in like swimming suits, but again, it makes sense. I don't really know where they got the swimsuits, actually, come to think of it. I don't remember. I think because it's like when the season ends and like the opening of the next season, they're all like in bathing suits because they're like near the water. And they're on a tropical island. It's fucking hot as shit. And they're kind of like hanging out by the water and kind of getting in some time to relax at one point. And they are in swimwear. But it's not like super sexual or revealing. Again, they're kids. Like, it's not meant to be taken like that. and that's not distracting because we're not focused on anything like that. Again, it's not like anime where we're like, oh, look at Akame ga Kill, she's fighting and we get to see her ass cheek ripple as she blocks an attack. Like it's nothing like that. It's not an anime. It's just these kids, their costume for today is they're in bathing suits because we're hanging out near the water, whatever, There's really, and besides stuff like that, other distractions I want to talk about are like, dead plot lines or meaningless scenes or like stuff that gets set up and goes nowhere or like red herrings and stuff like that. Like, there's really not much of that, nothing that really stands out. Everything works together pretty well towards the plot, and all the plots, small or big, kind of bleed into an overarching plot. So like, off the top of my head, there's not really much to be said here. Sure, there are a couple of small plot holes, given the fact that this does tie together in the movie franchise, like I've said time and time again. Some little tiny things don't quite add up, but like you kind of whatever, because you're not watching the show thinking, oh, how is this tying exactly into Jurassic World? Like, yeah, you think, where does this take place in the timeline because it's canon, but you're not like scrutinizing every little detail. It's whatever. I see some people online complain about like the jungle always looking the same everywhere, but like, dog, it's a jungle. Why are you like, oh, that fern looks like a fern? No shit, it's a jungle. Like, whatever. There's enough diversity in the scenery to where I never even consider that. I'm just like, yeah, it's the jungle in the background, whatever. It didn't bother me. Some kids, the kids are going back and forth a lot. So yeah, sometimes things are going to look the same. I don't know. There's really nothing to say here. This category scores a 7 out of 10 for me because there weren't a lot of distractions, so it gets a higher score. Like, basically, it loses 3 points for things I consider to be distractions, but, like, they're not glaring enough or whatever have you. I just kind of forget, and it doesn't bother me. It's not sticking in my head, so it gains points for not having a lot of distractions, so 7 out of 10. Now, category 9 is sympathy for the cast. I have discussed this enough, obviously, in bits as we've gone along, but I want to reiterate that as you go along with the show, like by the end of, like, say, season 1, you feel compassion and you feel sympathy for these literal children. They're between 12 and 16, and how they're stuck in this situation. They are in a life or death situation with actual fucking monsters without any adults or reliable shelter or consistent food or anything like that. They're running for their lives most of the time against an Indominus Rex, against a dinosaur that is a sin against nature, like whatever. And then at points, I'm not going to get into that right now, but like as the plot thickens, you do get that nagging sense that they're in no danger, because they survive everything. There's always like, oh, the dinosaur took a bite at them, but it's always just nearly missing them. Or like as the dinosaur's about to bite them, the dinosaur trips and falls, or they turn hard to the left so it slips. The dinosaur can't keep up because it doesn't maneuver that well or whatever. You always know that the main cast is going to be okay, that they're not going to get ripped to shreds. But it's always that maybe what if somebody gets injured? What if you're not worried about like what if they die? It's how is this going to affect their relationship? Are they going to get separated? How is this hindering what they're trying to do currently to escape or establish communication with the outside world? They're separated from what they consider to be home base. How are they going to get back? And it's those things that you're worried about for the characters. Not are they going to die? It's are they going to get hurt, and are they going to get separated? Are they going to be able to work together and do this? Is their plot, is their mission, current goal going to fail, and how is that going to affect them, And aside from the island, we learn a lot about where our cast comes from, like I said, how their backstories embolden our care for them, and you sympathize with their reasons for being there and what they're missing back at home. What they left, or what they left behind, and what they're losing within each other as their relationships fall apart and come back and ebb and flow and whatever have you. There's a lot of emotional work at play, and you really do feel for them, and it works, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It only loses a couple points because some things are like, oh, I don't believe the character would do that, but for the sake of plot, this is what we're doing. Like, this character's overreacting, but again, you have to think they are just kids, so it's like, it's however you want to view it. Okay, number 10, we are at a personal plus or minus. Now, this is where I give the show points or I take away points based on a one or two or a couple specific things that stuck out to me to where I want to either praise it or knock it off. So I'm going to say it, this show just remains neutral for me, okay? It's right in the middle. It loses as many points as it gains personally, aside from the things I've mentioned. Now, while it had many, many things I would give it extra points for, it also loses points for some grievances that I just can't ignore, some things that stick out to me, okay? So for example, how it sets up some of the antagonists and what that implies retrospectively with my own knowledge of the franchise as a whole, because I did watch the show after having seen every single Jurassic movie. So I did have it in my head of how does this work out, whatever. It doesn't ultimately matter, but there are certain things with certain characters that stick out to me where it's like, okay, like I'm not gonna give some names, it could be kind of vague, you can probably figure it out, but like some character who gets a redemption arc in later movies is in the show as an antagonist, and you're like, this character is just so profoundly evil and does such heinous, horrible things that like how could we possibly look at this character through a different lens and forgive them and whatever have you. And not even just that, but there are some like smaller antagonist characters we do get to see as we go along, other human characters that are on the island or that come to the island. And some of these characters are so unforgivably evil, not just with what they do to the dinosaurs. So like no big spoilers on what happens, but there's like a poacher plot line. Okay. And some of the things that they do to these dinosaurs and that they threaten to do to the kids is so fucking heinous and horrible that it's like, that's a little bit unbelievable. Like, it's unreasonable, it's unbelievable. I don't get it out of here. And I get that that's what's happening, but like some of these plots, you're like, they are threatening to murder these children or to let these children get ripped the fuck apart by dinosaurs, and they're just grinning their little evil heads off about it. It's like, holy fucking shit, dude. What is happening? This is a kid's show. There's barely blood in this show. Like, people are dying, sure, and dinosaurs are dying and fighting, whatever, but there's not a lot of blood. They're just like dinosaurs get scratched or burned or like wounded, and some of the characters get wounded, but like it's not like a gory show. People aren't getting their fucking heads ripped off, but like the implications of some of the stuff is like, okay man, whatever. And that's a little bit unbelievable for me. Like, it's not even cartoonishly evil. That's devious, monstrous, and deplorable, unforgivable evil kind of thing. And I'm not going to get any more into it than that. I don't want to set false expectation, but my personal plus or minus for the show is going to stay neutral at 5 out of 10. It gains 5 points and it loses 5 points, okay? And here we are at the end with the final verdict for the show. At the end of everything, I give Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous a solid 75 out of 100. That is a 7.5 out of 10, a 750 out of 1,000. However you want to look at it, whatever sounds the best or worst in your head, it gains 25 points above what I consider to be a perfectly average show. And I think that's pretty freaking good. That's a fantastic show in my book. And just before we go, I want to say one more time, if this show is on Netflix, this is not sponsored in any way, by the way. I know, like, I'm going to get 2 views on this, but, like, I'm just going to say that anyway, legally. And this is purely my unmitigated recommendation. Go check out the show. It's 5 seasons. It's like between 60 and 80 episodes. I don't exactly remember, and I'm not going to look it up, but it's definitely well worth the watch. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys somewhere else. Bye-bye.